twisted, being deprived, being oppressed, even confused. It's enough now, we're taking the power back. We're stronger than before, we're prouder, too strong. The worst is over. From Cape to Cairo, Morocco to Madagascar. From Cape to Cairo, Morocco to Madagascar.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Thank you for making the time to be with us. We welcome people that are on this platform, the Zoom platform. We welcome people that are joining us on the YouTube channel, as well as the people that are joining us on Facebook. Thank you for giving us your time and coming to share ideas with us and to be part of this very important conversation. Before we get started, it is with a heavy heart that I announce the passing of our very own. Today, we learned of the passing of Comrade Msiwa Madoda, Stera Kondile from Gqeberha, who passed on this morning after a short illness that took him to Kaila Hospital, where he succumbed to his death. Comrade Stera, whose Chimurenga name was, his Chimurenga name was Comrade Stera, he was a senior member of AZANLA forces, where he served in the Military Affairs Committee under both General George Biya and Comrade Pito Hlasa in the portfolio of Chief of Intelligence. He operated behind enemy lines most of his time in AZANLA. He was groomed by AZAPO in the dusty streets of Port Elizabeth to be the finest cadre of the movement and an excellent soldier of AZANLA. In fact, one of the finest cadres of our organization. May his soul rest in peace. We'll take a moment just to listen to one of his favorite songs that is being cued in now. Welcome back. So it's quite a sad moment indeed as we lose our finest. May his soul truly rest in peace. The UN says Africa is the region in which women run the greatest risk of being killed by their intimate partners or family members. During the COVID-19 pandemic, we have seen an increase in the vulnerability of women. And in particular, in Gauteng, we have witnessed, we woke up to harrowing news of 10-year-olds falling pregnant. There's been at least a 50% increase in reported rape and physical abuse cases. We now know for sure that women experience violence in their homes. In 2019 and 2020, a total of 2,695 women were murdered in South Africa. This means that a woman is murdered every 3 hours. According to the African Health Organization, femicide is 5 times higher in South Africa than the global average, with South Africa having the 4th highest female interpersonal violence death rate in the 183 countries listed by WHO in 2016. Some of the 51% in South Africa say they've experienced gender-based violence with 76% of men say they have personally perpetrated gender-based violence at one stage or the other in their lives. In 2019 and 2020, sexual offenses were reported on average of 146 per day. Most of these were cases of rape. South Africa has one of the highest rape incidences in the world. According to a survey conducted in 2009, at least 50% of women have either experienced gender-based violence in their homes at some point in their lives. So my question today is, what is it that is broken in us? What is in our makeup that makes our people hurt the carriers and nurturers of generations? Is it in our culture, maybe? Is it in our ways of being? It is in our makeup. What is it that makes us have these harrowing numbers of women being killed, being beaten, being raped in our country? And to help us shed some light and to maybe have this conversation, I have Professor Nokuzola Mndende, and I also have Dr. Momi Metsing, who are going to help us to break down this conversation a little further. Nokuzola needs no introduction. She's a lecturer, an author, and a very well-spoken culturalist, and a woman that I admire profusely. Dr. Momi Metsing is a psychologist by training, an avid follower of this platform, an amazing and a phenomenal woman that I look forward to engaging with. Well, Mama, thank you so much for gracing us with your presence today. I am really and eternally grateful to you making the time to help me understand a little better these challenges that our countries have. Mama Nokuzola, I'm going to start with you. Please give us a breakdown of your understanding of the conversation we are having today.
Oh, okay. I thought I was going to the second, but it's fine. I'm going to start now. Okay. Good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me. And I think I'm going to enjoy this debate, but I'm going to be brief in my presentation. I'm expecting questions. And I'm also greeting those who are with us, those that we don't see in Facebook, what. Thank you so much. I'm not sure what to say, but first of all, I just want to give a brief background about myself. As you are saying, I'm Nokuzola, Mama to you. I'm a Xhosa woman. I was born and bred in the rural areas. I'm a firstborn woman at home, with all my duties because of my birthright. I don't ask my brothers about my duties. They complement each other. The firstborn male in Kula, I'm the firstborn woman. I'm Umafungwashe. So in the past, the role of Umafungwashe was much respected. And I must admit now, it is less respected. We must ask ourselves why. The reason I'm saying that is that I don't want people to think that I'm romanticizing African culture. No, I'm not. But I've got a problem somewhere. I am a woman. First of all, what is this now? I am a woman. I've schooled in the Western form of education. As you are saying, I'm professor. I've got a PhD in African religion and theology. I am not a Christian. I'm just talking about myself so that you should understand where I am coming from. And I'm also experienced the imposed religion on me. And lastly, I'm also an igqirha, a diviner, where there is no gender discrimination. So on one hand, I've experienced this patriarchy, this sexism, this oppression. On the other hand, I have not. And I want to cite Bra Ruhanga, who says that in pre-colonial Africa, in order to enforce stability, peace, and harmony, Africans had evolved a system of defining what a man was and could do, and what a woman was and could do. I want the young people to listen carefully about this. And she ever said that each society, in order to justify its customs, it had to invoke the sanctions of divine powers. Now you are converts to another religion. You don't care about those divine powers. That's the problem. And when I was saying that, I'm a teacher by profession. You will find that with our people, even our forefathers and mothers, Western schooling, conversion, and civilization had been told, had been forced, were made to understand that they are synonyms. The fact that you have got matric, that means you are a Christian, that means you are civilized. So all those three, they go together, and that is what caused the identity crisis amongst other people. And my culture was labeled as non-progressive. Only Western culture was progressive. My religion is outdated. Only those religions that came here are liberating, are progressive, and are holy. Now my question is, in this present dispensation, where do I begin to talk about my issues? Because I've been told already to hate myself. That is what is found now in most of the young people. You'll find that what they are doing, in whatever negative thing has happened, they lambast their own culture, and they think that the Western culture is all holy. But those women don't tell us their own problems. And as a womanist theologian, I have engaged with feminist theologians worldwide. And I've engaged with women of color who says, some of them, I am not a feminist, I'm a womanist because I'm being oppressed by white women themselves. And it worse now when it comes to us, who find that women themselves have got many, there are many inequalities amongst women themselves. And those inequalities from other cultures, from other religions, from the class, they sympathize with those women who are non-Christians and those who are rural, saying they are the only women who are being oppressed by men. It is African culture. That's the problem that we're having. All cultures are oppressive. And to lambast African culture is making our young people to suffer more and more with identity crisis. That's why I like Zava when he says, this is also very important. The worst type of colonial enslavement is the cultural spiritual one, where the colonized is given a distorted image of himself and of his God by his oppressors, and he accepts that image and continues with it, unquestioningly despising himself, his culture, and his religion, and slavishly aping the culture of his colonizers. That is why you find our young girls now talking about dowry, forgetting that the dowry is for Indians, and talking about bride price as if a bride has got a price, and forgetting that lobola has got no English translation. Lobola is lobola, and it's not sale of women. And we find today South Africa is one of the hotspots of gender-based violence and femicide and so on and so on. And there's this escalating amongst the Black communities. And these are carried out by people who are living with the victims. I don't, as I said earlier, I don't want to appear as romanticizing African culture. For instance, where I come from, Willow Vale, there was this man who beat his wife to death because she ate the chicken liver. And this was called African culture. And my question was, which African culture is this man talking about? What did this man want with chickens? Because his duty is in the cattle kraal, not with chickens. So can you say this is African culture? This is a corrupt African culture by West. So that man, that is not African culture. We know that there was a girl who was beaten up because she was wearing, in the hostel somewhere, she was wearing pants because our men were saying it is not African culture for a woman to wear pants. It is African culture. Now the question that I asked, which culture are they talking about? Because pants, in isiXhosa we call them ibhlukhwe. Ibhlukhwe is neither for men or for women in African culture because ibhlukhwe derived from Afrikaans broek. It came with the white people. So men were never using the pants. This is new. So why are they saying it's African culture? So they are very selective. So where do we begin? Because we are not even given these platforms to explain this, even by women themselves. Now, those men are supposed to be protectors, but they are not. Now, we have seen that the dawn of democracy talking about this, about the holistic restoration of everything. Now you look at those things that they think has liberated us, you find that they've made our way of life to be worse mentally than for the best. When talking about African culture, the question is, which one are you talking about? When talking about pre-colonial culture or colonial culture, this colonial culture is very corrupt. So where do we begin? It is unfortunate that the majority of the Western educated Africans, including myself, are today champions of instilling their own people that Western culture and civilization are synonyms. Okay, now the problem, I'm told that there are 5 minutes. They are the ones who are drafting the policies. They are always moving from the unknown to the known. That is why they will always use from Jerusalem, or they will always use from the Roman Dutch law. So the fact that I was going to quote Hans Sungule, who says that what this constitution is not liberating at all these terms of multilingualism, what, they are not helping because they are just the buzzwords. And you find, I'm quoting Bongela here, which he is lying. He says that in traditional culture, women were generally left out and were not consulted or considered by men when participating in cultural aspects. Look at our pronouns, they are gender neutral. Look at the customary law. With customary law, the status of the man is determined by the status of his mother. It is his mother. Where did that go? It's just because this corrupt cultural. Now that you are saying I don't have time, I want to conclude by saying these atrocities are still going to happen more and more because the law of the land is being absorbed by the laws of the land where they come from. The Roman law comes from Italy, the Dutch law comes from the Netherlands. How can they be the superior laws in South Africa when there is the law of the land? Once now there is that twisted mentality, these things are still going to happen. And once we study our own affairs using foreign languages, we are still going. You young people are talking about black texts now, and they are killing each other. We are still going to have more problems. Once we have policies that are drawn by lawyers using the Roman Dutch law, we're still going to have a problem. Once we have, I don't understand, for instance, sorry, give 1 minute. I don't understand Christian women who claim to be feminists fighting for this, but at the same time, they are praying to a God who is the Father, or a God who is the Son. And when they talk to you, they will say, Paul said this to the Galatians. Why are we using these men to define our own situations? Let us be honest. First of all, let us remove those stereotypes of inequalities between the genders, because the two genders, and it's not that we're talking about equality, they are complementing each other. The day the question of rape is given to women, women will be able to deal with it. It is the same perpetrators who are dealing with rape, and who are the same perpetrators. I was with Xhosa men. I said, why are these Xhosa men in the forefront of talking about sanitary towels, pads? It's not their job. It is the job of women. Because if a girl is asking his father, Tata, how do you use a pad? Because he cannot demonstrate it. But if it's a woman, the woman will demonstrate how the pad is being used. So the problem, let us look at the gender roles. Let us look back at the African culture, how it was done. We know it's dynamic, but how should we use it today? The fact that we are silenced by men, fact that we are silenced by women from other religions and cultures, this is still going to escalate. Thank you so much.
Ndibulele kakhulu, Professor. Thank you so much for your wise words. I can't wait to come back to engage this conversation. Dr. Momi, your understanding and breakdown of the topic at hand.
Good afternoon, Kekeletso, and good afternoon to everybody who's watching through many platforms that have been afforded by AZAPO. I want to thank you and appreciate you and acknowledge that it's good to be here. And firstly, let me appreciate the beautiful song that I always play as an introduction to the AZAPO educational sessions. I kindly need to thank and appreciate AZAPO for the opportunity to share my thoughts and my life experiences through this platform. I also want to acknowledge my panelist, Professor Nokuzola Mndende. It is an honor to be with her today. Can I caringly declare that I am by no means a specialist of culture, nor a gender-based violence, but I belong to a particular culture, and I am part of a society and a cultural grouping. So again, I don't want to seem like I know it all and I understand all women, but I've got a story to share. And I have my experiences that I want to share today based on the anecdotes and the world that I live in. I want to state clearly that I'm a psychologist by profession, and most of my stories and experiences that I'm going to share today are shaped by the mental health view and the understanding of humanity in my world. It is those many stories that shaped my life and the many people that I encounter in my daily life, either in my private practice or in my work as a psychologist in the Department of Education. Please bear with me when I share those stories, because for me, they bring theory into practice and they breathe life into this complex situation that we find ourselves in. By no means, it's not to simplify the complexity and the enormousness of the challenge at hand. These stories are remarkable to me, and I believe they give a glimpse of a steadfastness of people, and they bear witnesses and support, or whether they fail as humanity, depending on the framework that you look at them. The stories that I'm going to share, I believe, are those that need to be shared with the society to build a new culture, a new boys which are going to be men, a new girls which are going to be women. Let me start by saying, when Ntate Hashe approached me to be part of the panel, I was taken aback. I wondered what information do I need to update not only the theoretical aspect that I have, but to bring life to this topic. So in that I backed up my sense, and then I attended many webinars, including those by Professor Kopanuratele, who talks more of an African psychology, decolonizing psychology, masculinity, and I tried to make notes and I tried to read a lot. I asked many people, just thinking so that I can get a better understanding, which I can share today. But I want to say to you, Kekeletso, that still today, I need to know more to understand this complexity of culture and gender-based violence. It is on the note that I want to acknowledge that this topic, African culture and gender-based violence, is a very complex topic, and no quick solution will ever solve this complex challenge as we all face it, either as individuals or as a society or as a nation. You know, as we go in depth, it is my assertion that the gender-based violence, which is an expression of gender inequality, toxic masculinity, is also another pandemic that exists in all societies. It exists at various degrees in their prevalence or in their severity. But it also, in my thinking, requires the same effort of attention by everybody, including the government, and globally, as we have given the attention to COVID-19. The intersection of marginalization and discrimination, for me, it made certain groups of women more susceptible to gender-based violence during this pandemic. So this intersecting social identities of vulnerability, I think they need equal attention in order to eradicate this inequality. I want to bring a different perspective, Kekeletso, to this rationale behind African culture and gender-based violence. And I do not know the answers to the facts that I'm bringing, but it's a reflection of questions that I'm also struggling to answer. I certainly am not certain how we as a society, as a Black nation, we got here where we are right now. But I'm certain that many factors, including the ones that I will be sharing, have certainly contributed to this cultural and gender-based violence in this country. The following questions that I have, in my mind, I believe they will shed light on how we got here today. The point number one, which I'm trying to understand, is how do we as a society, as women, as mothers, as fathers, how do we socialize our boys? How do we teach our boys who are going to be men on what is a man? What is the definition of a man? How does society and culture play the role in expectation from a boy and a girl, and those two who are going to be men and women of tomorrow? How do society define boys and girls to express their emotions as boys, to express their emotions as women? The big question for me in looking both in culture and gender, and how does culture play a role in this question? What makes a man a man? What makes a woman a woman? How does the culture in the construction of what is a serious problem, hegemonic masculinity, play a role? How do enculturation, meeting of different culture, affect our African culture and contributes to the gender-based violence? And these are the questions that I'm asking, because it has been proven that gender-based violence is predominantly perpetrated by men. But a big part, I need to say clearly that I'm not going to say women are not perpetrators of violence. It might not necessarily be physical evidence that anybody can see, but it may be emotional, mental, and other deprivation. For now, I need to just end there, Kekeletso, and I'll be guided by you on further engagement by yourself. Thank you for now.
Wow, you raised some very interesting points, and I think what I'm coming back to, which is something that I think maybe we need to delve a little bit deeper into, is this idea that Mama Mndende raised, where he talks about the identity crisis. I'm often reminded of an analogy of sitting at the table. And as you sit at the table, you have a bowl in front of you, and you are eating with your hands. And as you are eating this food, it is going down. And somebody walks through the door and says, but you can't eat with your hands. It is not allowed. And gives you a fork and a knife and walks out of the room. And you are stuck with a bowl and a fork and a knife, and you don't know what to do with. And this for me is indicative of what has happened to us as Africans when our culture was degraded, as Nokuzola says. They came in and they said our culture was dirty, it was non-functional, and they said, you cannot follow this system, get rid of it. This is the right system. They introduced Christianity, they introduced the Western way of living, there is in the Western ways of being. But in so doing, didn't fully introduce them to our people. And so our people have bits and pieces of the Western ways of being and their own. And I think somehow in my brain, I feel like that is creating the disconnect that we are experiencing. But I would like to find out, is it an identity crisis that we are experiencing? Is the violence that is being muted at women as a result of this identity crisis? What is being a man? What is being a woman? Professor, what is your take?
Okay, thank you so much, Kekeletso. I was just looking at something here when you were talking about the fork and the knife. And when I was talking about the firstborn woman and the firstborn man, I was saying these two, they complement each other. There's no superior and inferior between the two. So the problem here is because men are taught that they are superior to women. Therefore, women want to be equal to them, as if we're complementing. No one is superior than the other. If we can remove that superiority complex, which is not there, that is why when a man is not working now and it's the wife that is working, hey, I'm supposed to be this one. That is why now, oh, you think that you are better off now. That's because you have got money, I don't have money. And now we find that the problem comes. Now I want to come to the use of forks and so on. There is a citation by Reverend Callaway. Reverend Callaway, when he said the Christian, oh good, I've got it here. He says, Christian teaching must be supplemented by teaching of another kind. In fact, everything that is calculated to make them think, that means Africans were not thinking. So he saw us as not thinking. And he says, and be systematic in their action and provident in their concerns. To teach them to sit on chairs and eat off plates instead of squatting on the ground and eating with a chip out of a pot. To teach them to build square houses instead of round hovels. All these are all parts of missionary teachings. So that is so to remove our main hearts with all the sacred spaces. Now Callaway said, no, do away with that and then build square houses. So, and now if you build square houses, you are more civilized, you are more superior, you're more intelligent than the one with the what they call round hovels. And what is strange, the so-called round hovels that they say a negative to us, they are not thinking. Now, when they introduced them as chalets for economic purposes, oh, they are holy, they are better off, and so on and so on. That is why even when I'm talking about the skins, when you were wearing skins, they were saying, we are rude, we are this and that, barbaric. But when they sell the skins as leather, oh, they, that is fine. That is why even in the isiXhosa, there is a saying, umona wasemlungwini ubandeza iqhitywa ungaliqabi, because they said ochre is a sin. But when we buy ochre from them, it's no longer a sin, it's fine. So this is the identity crisis and the feeling of self-hate that we have experienced from the missionaries. So if you are a convert, you cannot tell me that you are fighting for the liberation of a Black person, and yet you are citing the very same people who put you in this situation. I don't know whether I've answered.
Dr. Momi, the identity crisis, is there an identity crisis? And as a psychologist, what is your understanding of what is happening in society in terms of this disconnect of the identity? Is it an African identity crisis? Is it a human identity crisis? It is the globalization, the impact of globalization. What is it that is driving the identity crisis, which we now realize is probably at the center of this inequality, so to speak?
Okay. So, in my thinking, Kekeletso, I want to state that with where we find ourselves right now, there is an impact and an effect that was brought to us by modernization, by civilization, but by also the enculturation that emerged with us mixing with each other. And it affects ourselves and how we then have to execute certain things. There is the expectations from society on how certain human being should behave. That brings about a lot of confusion, a lot of transition, a lot of mixed masala in my world, but a lot of judgment or non-judgment, because as people, we also want to belong to a particular grouping. And with that, it's for us to find our state of readiness when we came to the modernization of the civilization. Were we ready to transit? Was our mental, our mentality and our humanity ready to can transit to I don't know what, but we are here now. What do we do with the crisis that we are facing? Do we go back? Do we negotiate? Do we renegotiate in order to move forward? But we also need to be mindful that the very same system that we are talking about right now is the very same system that we are trying to deconstruct. We are also a part of that system. So it becomes problematic to also try to deconstruct what you are part of. So as part of this construction, be mindful of also how that affects you as a person, trying to deconstruct what has been constructed already.
So in essence, we are pretty much part of the system. The system doesn't happen outside of ourselves. We perpetuate the systems. I mean, you ask the question, what type of men are we raising in our homes that ultimately become the problems that we actually have to deal with? I think we also spoke of misogyny and how Black women themselves become the guardians of misogyny, and actually perpetuate misogyny in their homes by treating either their girl children or the wives of their kids, etc. Now, here's a challenge for me that I would like Mam Nokuzola to have a look at for me, and then maybe tell me. Mam Nokuzola, in as much as you said that you do not really romanticize culture, I have the following questions. Research says to me that women who live in rural communities experience heightened levels of gender-based violence. Women who live in rural environments, particularly environments that have traditional leadership, are more oppressed in terms of economics, in terms of their agency as human beings. And that for me is, if you look at those areas, those are the areas where culture as an excuse is used a lot. What is your take on this concept?
Okay, thank you, Kekeletso. I just want to comment first and come to your question. You know, it's true we're living in two worlds. The way I behave in the city is different from the way I do in the rural areas. If I meet you in the streets of Gqeberha and you say, hi, Nokuzola, I say, hi, how are you? Fine, thanks. Okay, that's la, la, la. Because this is how it is done here, because it's individualistic. But when I go home, you ask me the same question, Ujani, I will take about 5 minutes or more, because it's communal. You're not talking about yourself, you are talking about us. That is one of the elements of identity crisis that we're having, because we're living in two worlds. And this question of living today, but the problem, we as Black people are living today, but those people who cause the identity crisis to make us to live today, I agree, but they're going back to our tools and are using them as if they are new to us. That is why I always question even the health department to say, let us go to the rural women to teach them about breastfeeding. No. Myself, I never used the formulas. I was breastfed, but the very same people said, use the formulas, not breastfeeding. Now they see that the formulas are failing. They are saying, go back to breastfeeding. So again, that is that superiority complex. And, you know, I'll talk about my closer experience. Once a birth ritual is not performed, that person, whether young or old, someone will come, will be urinating. But if I take the person to the doctor, will tell me that I'm frustrated, no problem. I mean, how can a 4-year-old be having a problem? And if the ritual is performed, I will know that this is going to stop. Why do we undermine those scientific ways of doing it, indigenous, over the Western ones as if they are superior? So, for instance, last one example, the measles. We don't need to vaccinate for measles. We know that Ingataze will heal measles. Take inside, put the person in where there's no sun, and then the measles will go away. But we will be told that that is unscientific, that is unclean, and so on and so on. So that's why I'm saying, until we remove these inequalities, that the West is more scientific, is more intellectual than Africa, we're still going to have all these things. Now let's come to the question you were asking, Keke, so that about women in the rural areas being more oppressed. That's a lie. I'm saying I'm from the rural areas. And again, I was talking about the question of language. That is distorting, because in English, we are talking about a woman. Who is a woman in the rural areas? Because Nokuzola is a mother, Nokuzola is a paternal aunt, Nokuzola is a madlamini. So, untombi mazizini, dintombi, and where I am married, I am a wife, ndingumfazi. So there are boundaries, because I don't belong to that clan. But whenever I go home, at home I've got no boundaries. It's a lie that women are not allowed to get inside the crown. Because kusekhaya is at home. And at home I am a girl, whether I'm 78 or 65 or 22, I am a girl. There are no boundaries. And I've got my specific duties, even to my brother's children, as he has got specific duties, even with my children. So it's complementing each other. And there is a lie again from the urban women to say that women are not allowed by traditional leaders to own land. That is a lie. Because we are given land. I've got umzwam, not just because I'm educated, but all the women, once you have children, you are given your own land because you must look after the children, whether you are married or not married. They must go to the rural areas, sit with the women, speak their own languages, and so on. If I'm in the city, I cannot breastfeed my child in public because that is public indecency. I must cover my breast. But if I'm in the rural areas, the child goes outside and when he's hungry, just comes and takes the breast and he feeds itself. That is not regarded as anything negative. So the problem with urban women, African women, they have absorbed that Western mentality that in the rural areas we are oppressed. They must find out which culture is that, not the colonized culture. Rape is happening whether in the rural or urban. And this question, maybe one will talk about ukutwala. Ukutwala is corrupted now because in the past, when the woman was toilet, both the future husband and the future, they didn't know each other. But today, these young men, what they do, they will go to rural areas and they toilet the girl. No, it was not their choice, even in the rural areas then, but it's their choice now. Now let us correct them. Sit down with the young people to say, guys, you are getting lost. I don't know whether I've answered you.
Dikvela, Mama. Dr. Momi Metsing, your take on this thing. Do you agree that rural women versus modern or city women are more oppressed? And do you think it is the setting? Do you think it is the cultural practices that oppresses women more or not? Or is this a construct of Western education and Western media and the Western lens that makes us continue to hate our ways or ourselves? What is it?
I think we are caught up in two worlds, and it becomes very problematic to match the two. We have this on the right, we have this on the left. It is not going to be easy to match the two, but we are here, and this is what we have. I would like to, for me, what is key in all this discussion that are coming up is that there's an element of shame that is brought by the two worlds which we find ourselves in. Okay. How we get to this shame is the expectation from the external world that will define on how we as women, we need to handle certain things, contain yourself, structure yourself, and make as if everything is okay, when clearly inside there's a turmoil that is going on. I want to cite an example of the two worlds that we are living in. And in my introduction, I said, I spoke of bringing in the world, in my world, the worldview of the men that are said to be perpetrating this violence. For me, it's important as a mother because these men that are perpetrating this violence have been raised in a family. And clearly in the center of all of this, there was a mother or a mother figure who was in between here. Now, the thing that brings me, that I want to talk about is, and I said I've got these stories, and I want to bring shame in all these two words that we are caught up in between. In my world, in my line of work, I work with many parents and learners together. So there was this learner who somehow at one point had to talk to a teacher because of the shame where there's this world which says you need to be a woman, stand firm, close everything outside and stand firm and be okay. But there was this turmoil going on inside that says you need to talk because you are hurting inside. This young girl unfortunately, what happened to this young girl was that the 4 boys, one boy actually started to say to this young girl, can I test your virginity? Are you willing for me to break your virginity? Unfortunately, in that incident, there were 4. All 4 boys slept with this young woman all at once. It happened again. Now they were using the same instruments to say, if you're not going to sleep with me, I am going to tell this one and this one. And it happened almost like 4 times at a go. Up until this young girl then started to talk and told one teacher, that's when I interviewed. My point is, for these young men to have that essence, and I'm not sure whether this is culture or this is not culture. I stated clearly that this is not my forte. My forte is the psyche inside the brain of somebody who would then go out and do all these things to a girl, which brings about shame, where as a woman, you're supposed to stand tall and say things are okay, things look okay because I'm putting on this face, this mask that I'm putting. Whereas at the same time, there's this battle and a turmoil that is going on inside. I think it's important that we need to understand and acknowledge that things are just not okay. It cannot be right that women are then forced to say, because you are married, you're supposed to close everything out and look like everything is okay, because there's this that says you need to look okay. If it's not okay, it's not okay. It cannot be right. I want to cite one example. When the MEC stated that so many learners are pregnant, and I said to myself, but these young girls did not impregnate themselves. There's somebody behind this. What is being said about those that impregnated those girls? And for me, that's where the conversation is, to say, we always look at women to be these wrong people, to be all this. But these women are not just all there alone. They've got somebody behind, whether seen, visible or not visible, who may be perpetuating or contributing to all these challenges, including the gender-based violence that we find ourselves in. Remember, when you're a woman and you've got I don't know what you call this, a blue eye, you have to put Kekeletso on spectacles and give this facade that everything is okay. For me, that becomes problematic when we are caught up in the two worlds which we need to match, and clearly we are not winning.
I hear you, and just before I go on to my next question, I'd like to say that to the people that are watching us on YouTube or on Facebook, and the ones that are on the platform, if you have any questions for the panelists, please put them on the chat and we will put them through to our panelists so that we can have a much more robust conversation. Mama Nokuzola, Dr. Momi raises an issue. And the issue is about how women's bodies are policed. And even more so, if you look at this particular subject, it goes to that process of policing pureness and cleanliness of women, where there is the tests that get done to check if a woman is a virgin, but the same does not apply to men ever. Men are never tested for their virginity, and it's never required of them. The purity test is never required of men. Why is that? If you do know, why is it that the women's bodies are policed to the point? I'll give you a classical example. Even the ones that go to church. When you go to church, if you're wearing a short skirt, you mustn't sit in front. You are going to tempt the pastor. They're not saying, pastor, sort yourself out and leave the woman alone. They're saying the women are the problem. They're the ones that are the temptress, not the men that are going to go after these women. When there is cheating, when there's a married man who is cheating, the fault always lies with the woman. I'm trying to understand about where does culture go in terms of policing men's bodies as well, and not just women? Why is it that it's the female body that is always policed?
That is why I'm saying, Kekeletso, thank you. We need a platform to unpack these questions, Osbuzayo. Wena. First of all, the government, through its constitution, when it was being drawn up, they never asked the law of the land. The government interfered with family values, things are decided in parliament and not from the families, and things are decided from the West because they can write several letters to say no, 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 no. And that's the problem. Those inequalities, even by our own people, they have betrayed us. I'm talking about members of parliament. Now, let me come to your questions. You are talking about, truly, you are right. Don't sit in front and say that skirt is going to tempt the pastor. And you know that there was that woman, who, I think it was Joburg, who was wearing a short skirt and was beaten by the taxi people. No, no, he's enticing us. No, 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 you can't even drive. There was someone saying because this woman is having a short skirt, and our culture, this is not allowed. This is any man's weak point, not of any color. Point number one. Let us remove it from our culture. It's just a weakness of men. But in our culture, there was a way to control that. That is why I am fortunate. I'm coming from that generation when the boy was going for initiation. We used to be those girls who were dancing and singing. We would be asked, the boys would come to our homes to ask for us, and we would go and prepare umqombothi there, and we would sleep there. But no man would sleep with you. That is why we were even saying, we're doing what is called ukudlala, to play. No man would penetrate, not at all, because he knows that he will be punished for doing that, severely for doing that. And as a girl, you were allowed to report your man if he has penetrated you. And then men would know, would stand away. That's why I don't like these men to say not in my name, because we don't know how they treat their wives at home. So what we used to call isiewula in my community, it was done by women only, to the parents, to the father, to the home of that young boy who has just penetrated the young girl whom he was in love with. So there were ways to control that. But when colonialism came, said this is barbaric and unholy. So to say you tempt, we used to wear short skirts, we never tempted anybody. And no father would rape his daughter because of that, or whoever, because of that. Now let me take this. We'll be taking this as a joke. When it comes to cheating, basically it was not like that. In my culture, if there are closer men who are listening, they must correct me. There is a practice. If a woman, married woman, is being impregnated by another man, that child belongs to her husband. Uzobuza uba ubuphi wathi unkosikazi wakho umithiswe enye indoda. Where were you? So that child belongs to this husband. Even if the husband is deceased and she's young and she conceives other children, those children will be having an identity. They belong to the deceased husband, even if he died 10 years ago. So that's what I'm trying to say, not justifying cheating, but there were ways to control this. Not that they were not there, but there were ways to control this. But in the city, because we are all sleeping in one room, it's difficult to control them. So it's not the question of rural women being more oppressed. Like in marriage, In marriage, the man builds the homestead, but that homestead belongs to the wife and his children, and not to him. That is why when he decides to take another wife, he must move out, because that homestead belongs to the wife. But today, you will find that these men will want 50-50. So that is why I'm saying my problem, I'm rural and I know my responsibilities. But now I have to fight for them because they were taken away by colonialism. So it's not only girls that are checked, even these men, they are being taught by the father. They are supposed to be. No, I'm not talking about today. When this young man goes for initiation, he will come back and say, Umama umfaz, you are a woman mother. No, it was never like that. It's new. That is why I'm saying it is this corrupted colonial culture. And your identity, that's the last thing, some young people don't know. Your identity, when they say, where is your umbilical cord? Even with men, they are asked that, that means where are you born? Where are your roots? It's the mother who knows where the nkaba is, the umbilical cord is. It's the mother who knows the identity of this child. It is the mother who knows whether this child was born with a crown, umntana wesingqobo will be having a gift, and how to treat this child, because this child may be having some problems growing up, because he will be having that privileged spiritual connection. But now they were giving birth in hospitals. We're not even told how this child was born. And now I've got children who are misbehaving like this. I'm not saying the drugs are not there. Yes, the drugs are not there, but there are other cultural issues that we have ignored as parents, and we're not telling our children. And now the way they are behaving, you can't have a picture of a young man taking Kekeletso and slitting the throat of Kekeletso and this and that. That child is abnormal. Something must be found out. What is the problem? What is his problem? He has got problems, but we are not told that they will say they'll take the child to the West, rehabilitation, but not going to our own health system to find out what's the problem with this child.
So, Dr. Momi, here's my question. My question goes to you, and it speaks to the psyche. Every day we hear that men who beat women are men with issues themselves. We hear that hurt people hurt people. We hear that men who rape women are victims of violence themselves, and maybe that's why they do what they're doing. And here's my question. How is it that women get beaten, they get raped all the time, and yet at the same time, we do not have women who are, violent in the manner that we are seeing men being violent? Why is it that society has a group of wounded men all of a sudden, and the women who are the recipients of this violence are not acting in? Is there a way where patriarchy is trying to protect itself by justifying the violence that is muted at women by making, exposure to violence an excuse to the, to the violence that has been muted at women?
When there's marriage, when people are admonishing, telling this young man, he would be told that that ox hide, when you feel beating, don't beat this. And it's us women, when my husband beats me, I don't want to go home and report him because I still love him. So I tolerate that. I hide it from home that he, and tomorrow morning he will say, I'm sorry, my dear, I don't know what has happened, blah, 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 blah. That's the problem number one. Problem number two, the system is also adding up. And I must say this. I know most men are not going to like it. Men are physically strong. It ends there. Otherwise, the other strengths are given to women. That is why we even know if this child will be right intimately. That is why we know how this child will grow is with women. But we are not teaching you, Kekeletso, now because we have given this birth to a flat in Johannesburg. I'm unable to teach you. There are things that were taught by the mothers and the paternal aunt when the young girl is growing up, but those are not there. And with men, unfortunately, because the men are told that they are the builders of the homestead. So if now a man can't come with the money, he is frustrated. So that is why he's going to be very sensitive. Or I bought a wardrobe because you're getting 2,000 more than myself. So that's their problem. If they can't achieve what they are supposed to achieve, then
Okay,
they fall the faith. But with us, we are not like that. You will use the 500 exactly for where it's supposed to be. So that's nature.
Okay. Dr. Momi, that question was directed at you. As well.
Okay, thank you, Kekeletso. The violence that we are seeing in my world is based on the entitlement that is out there. For me, it becomes problematic when men feel that a woman is an item or a belonging that belongs to them. If you can't be mine, then nobody can have you. And that's the psyche that is going on. But I also want to say, society has made a framework where some men are unable to express their frustration because it's expected that a man cannot be kind, a man cannot show the feminine side of themselves. And that becomes a problem where entitlements come in, power comes in, authority comes in, and you can't negotiate that space as a woman. But we also, as a society, need to also be cautious on how we socialize men, rather boys who are going to be men tomorrow, to say, no, my child, you can't cry as a boy. No, men up, men up. I think it's important that we realize that all men also are human beings. They've got all the emotions that each and every human being has. And therefore, it's important to nurture that kindness. It can't be correct that we expect them to be powerful and all that, and at the same time be kind. For me, it's a contradiction. That is the construct that are there. But why we are where we are with this heightened gender-based violence, it's once again modernization, civilization, transition, power, entitlement, society constructs which we cannot simply handle. And that's where we see ourselves battling with all of this at the same time, because we can't be able to handle one, but we have to handle a whole lot of complex issues to can be able to sustain, understand, transit, and be what we think we need to be.
Dr. Momi, I'm going to ask you another question. There is a conversation that happens generally on intergenerational trauma. Intergenerational trauma, and I'm going to start right at the beginning when the dromedaries landed and white men raped Black women in full view of Black men. And there's an argument that says rape is a learned culture. It is a culture that we learned from the West and we have imbibed and taken ownership of. That is one thing. The other issue is the emasculation of Black men by the system during apartheid, where a Black man was kicked by a little boy and didn't then know who they were when they got home. Because back there, they are called a boy. And in their homes, they want to exert that power of, I am the man of the house. And subsequently, feeling that disempoweredness from the towns back into the homestead and wanting to prove themselves creates this need for power dynamics which we didn't have initially. And as a result, that learned culture continues over generations. Is that a fact, a myth, or a reality? Dr. Momi, please.
Thank you, Kekeletso, and thank you for bringing that up. It's a very emotional, topic for me, that one. I need to be honest. And simply because my work and my space talks about trauma. And my experience in intergenerational trauma and how this trauma is circulating, whether we are aware or aware, but predominantly we are not aware of the trauma that was done to us previously. Initially, I said we are a system, we are part of a system that we are trying to deconstruct, but we need to be conscious and aware and know our position in the system and how we act or do not act in accelerating that which we are trying to deconstruct. You said such a very important thing. They came here, they emasculated our men, they took over that which we had, and we were left with nothing. We had to find ourselves as people, and predominantly most of the violence originate from the rationale of apartheid, where the only source of externalizing your emotion was through violence. It's important what you said to say, how did this affect us as human beings? Are we certainly aware of that which you said, which is very important? If we are not aware of that which has affected our brains, our outlook of life, our rationale, our reasoning, our way of thinking, we will never get it right. You remind me of a situation, a case where I had in one of my sessions. I was with a mother and a father. They came into my session because of their child, obviously. When I asked certain questions, because the man was sitting next to the woman was just quiet, sitting there and agreeing to what this man was saying. And I could get a sense that something is just not right here, you know. And I asked the gentleman to say, is it possible that you can just give me and give us some few minutes so that I can get a sense? I will call you back. You will not believe it, Kekeletso. The man went out and that woman just broke. She broke. And that for me was a painful thing on how, as this man was portraying the manhood, asserting himself, stating the fact and looking at the woman and saying, that's right, am I right? And the woman would say, that's right. And it's all because we are not consciously aware of, we may actually not be consciously aware of how the whole system, the whole civilization, the whole colonization took a part of us, and we find ourselves with less of something, that which we have. We can't replace that, but we need to find ways to correct and heal as a society and heal from the wounds that caused us to be where we are. Violence can never be right. There's no rationalization of violence. We can't go back to where we come from. We are here. right now, and we are moving forward. Going back, I'm not sure if it's gonna help us, but while we are here, acknowledge the injustices that were done to us, acknowledge the demasculinity of all our men, acknowledge as women how we were supposed to act and become as correct, and heal, because there's a lot of pain. There's a lot of pain that you are dealing with, especially when we come to this gender-based violence.
Thank you so much. Mom Nokuzola, we cannot deny the impact of apartheid on the psyche of Africans, and in particular, the violence that we speak of. And part of it is, I think maybe we are looking at African culture to say, can we really heal our nation that come from the emasculation of men, like I have said, and the intergenerational trauma, because it didn't end, it continues, because we are not doing anything. We are not saying our people are hurt, our social systems are broken, our ways of being were taken. Can we heal? And what is it going to take for us to change and begin the process of healing the intergenerational trauma in Tatangai? Or ikona even, or maybe am I just making things up as I'm going along?
Thank you, Kekeletso. So, you cannot cover a septic wound and you claim that, or you put an ointment without cleaning it first. So let us clean the wounds first. And when you clean the wounds, I think the Western women, the educated women, must sit down with the rural women and we discuss these issues, not to come to town halls and talk about them. Let me make an example to show that even the system is perpetuating this. There's an act that allowed abortion to our children to abort. Who made them pregnant? It's men who are making them to be pregnant. And they know them about. But if you go to rural areas, I have never heard the members of parliament and these other women from other organizations speaking in the indigenous language to say, "Aibo mama, sizoni cebiso abantwana mabaqhomfe," because they know how serious that term is, because it disintegrates the nature, the humanity, the confidence of that child. So the government is passing abortions. Why were they doing that? And secondly, when we talk about rape, you see, rape is a mild term. But if I say so and so is slave, they know how a slave is treated, and but we are still using English to interpret our own things. My challenge is that let us have an intergeneration discussion from where the problem started. I'm not saying we can't have today without yesterday. Let's start yesterday and then today and then talk about tomorrow. The problem is that the government and the organizations, they talk about today. And when they talk about today, they interpret yesterday without going to yesterday to move forward. So it will never be solved. That is why I'm saying, even in my culture, you find that now there are women during the performance of Ukushwama. I would say it's a ritual thing that is happening, spiritual, inside the kraal. And you find that now there are feminists who do not allow women into the kraal, yet they belong to this particular family. And when I asked why, and now they said, no, it may happen that one of them is menstruating. And then I'm over 60. I'm no longer menstruating. Why am I not allowed? What's wrong with menstruating in the first place? Because there are those who were not menstruating, but when they go home, when they're taken to the kraal, they start menstruating. What's wrong with that? It's because of this corrupt culture. Let us deal with the causal factors. If we are not dealing with them, it will never be solved. I saw one question, a comment from one person about talking the example I made in Willowville. That man is not because of culture. That is what I was saying. But what happened on the papers and the news, the media, they were saying it's African culture. I said, "Likwala lendoda earlier." That is not our culture. In the first place, there was even nothing associating him with chicken. Zinto zomama eziya. So it was just a coward and a mentally disturbed person. Because I can't even say it's greed. I can't label you as greed because you have eaten it and it's chicken liver. So that's why it's not culture, but those who interpret it, they interpreted it as culture. That is why we got into say it is not culture. So I think those women from the West, they must come and discuss these things with us. We will be stuck there because we are saying this is not how it is done. This is the
Thank
way
you so
it
much.
is done, and then we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Unondobeko Yawa says we need to think of ways to reverse what has been imposed on our people and the disassociation from our own culture. This should be introduced in our religious and education system and within our communities. Programs of teaching our history and the beliefs are absolutely critical. In the last minute, just very shortly, they say that if you do not deal with the wounds of the past, you will continue to bleed into the future. Dr. Momi, your closing comments, please.
My closing comments, Kekeletso, is that that's true. If you don't know what's troubling you, you will never find the solution to what is troubling you. My last word would be, let's acknowledge the hurt and the pain that was subjected to us. And I hope in this journey of life, we will find healing as a nation, as a community, as a Black community in particular, and heal ourselves and move forward and acknowledge our problem. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ukhamtabele Nodoba said, why is it that we seem to be victims of what we are opposing? Discussing such as this should not be conducted in African languages. Using Isingesi to express African thought and innovation. We can use captions in English. What is the panel's take? Unfortunately, I don't think we have a lot of time, but I think it is a subject for the next conversation. The use of languages and how it actually distorts what it is that we are trying to say. So I'd like to invite you to a conversation we are going to have next month, which is looking at our culture and systems. And then we can talk about how language has actually changed who we are, how it affects our ways of being. So I will invite you to next month's session when we talk about language, culture, and all of those things. Mam Nokuzola, your last minute, like literally 1 minute of closing remarks, please.
Thank you. Fortunately, I've mentioned the problem of interpreting our culture using a foreign language. That is a problem. Thank you for that. My challenge is to you young people, stand up, because the baton is with you now. If you let us die without explaining these things, challenge us, invite us, challenge us, so that you can explain, because you are getting more lost. What my project, let me say it now, and I know I'm going to be crucified. I am going around talking about the role of women in Amaxhosa male initiation rituals, because they are lying to say women have got no role, and I'm saying they've got a role. I'm going around with that. Thank you.
Oh, my word, what an amazing afternoon. Thank you so much. Like, I admire both of you so much. I am truly, truly, truly honored to have spent my afternoon with the two of you. Thank you so much for gracing this platform with your time, your intellect, your knowledge, your wisdom. I am eternally grateful to you. And I want to say this. I'm going to invite you back. Both of you, I'm going to invite you back, because there is so much that is still unsaid and undone. To everybody that joined us on YouTube, thank you so much for coming through. The people that are on Facebook, I am grateful for you making the time every weekend, every Sunday, to be part of this platform, to be part of this engagement. I am truly eternal. The people that are joining us on the Zoom platform, I am truly honored to have the opportunity to spend my afternoons with you this whole month. It's been phenomenal. I've learned so much from this program and the interactions I've had with you. I do not take them for granted at all. Thank you so much. Be blessed, and may we really truly find healing, because unless we stop hurting the carriers of our generations, we will truly bleed into the future and we will never realize the freedom of Azania. Have a good afternoon. Ngiyabonga.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Listen, the struggle was not red. I experienced it. Being deprived, being oppressed, even confused. It's enough now. We're taking the power back. We're stronger than before. We're prouder, too strong. The worst is over. From Cape to Cairo, and Morocco to Madagascar. From Cape to Cairo, and Morocco to
Thank you.
Madagascar.